Well, Senate Democrats are holding a special caucus meeting today to discuss the rise of gun violence across the country.
That's right. And they're looking for solutions to tackle the growing issue in the wake of what are just consistent mass shootings, especially in recent weeks. One of the latest took place at an outlet mall in Allen, Texas over the weekend. 8 people there were killed and 7 others wounded in that attack.
The U.S. has recorded at least 210 mass shootings since the start of the new year. That means at least 4 people were injured or killed in each of those individual incidents. More than 15,000 gun-related deaths have been reported during that same time frame as well.
CBS News congressional correspondent Nikole Killion joins us now with more on this. Nikole, we have been here before, but help us understand the specific purpose of today's meeting.
Well, I just ran into Georgia Senator Raphael Warnock, who is one of the senators who was pushing for a meeting like this. And he said that he will be addressing his colleagues this afternoon and told me that, people want action on gun safety. And so he is going to encourage his fellow colleagues to move forward on this issue. And in Leader Schumer's explanation of why this special session was called, Leader Schumer said that it is to discuss a pathway forward. And some of that does come from conversations that he has had with Senator Warnock and others who believe that Congress needs to take on a more active role when it comes to this issue. As you pointed out with a number of those statistics, there have been more mass shootings than there have been days of the year. So while, yes, Congress has acted on a bipartisan package last year, there still is a desire among some lawmakers to do more. And so again, that is the nature of today's conversation, to see how they can move the ball forward here.
Nikole, we're coming up on the 1-year anniversary of Uvalde. After that, I remember how Congress came together. There was a will to pass something, but it feels like the atmosphere is really different from what it was 12 months ago. Tell us how things feel on the Hill, and is there any room to negotiate between Democrats and Republicans?
Well, I think that is the hope among some lawmakers. But again, understanding the political realities and dynamics here with a Republican House and a democratically controlled Senate does make the pathway much more challenging and difficult. That being said, many congressional Republicans have argued in terms of that bipartisan Safer Communities Act that really is about as much as lawmakers can do right now, and that really it is a matter of that law still being fully implemented. Portions of it have been implemented, but many Republicans believe as that law continues to be rolled out that could have some broader implications going forward. But many Democrats feel that more needs to be done. Obviously, we have heard the president call repeatedly for Congress to revisit a potential assault weapons ban, which has already been introduced in this Congress, but so far has not been taken up, or the issue of universal background checks, or potentially, some kind of narrower fixes. And there are some Republicans who are also discussing potential ideas. Certainly, many congressional Republicans have argued the need for more legislation around the issue of mental health, for instance. So there is some discussion, but so far we have yet to see both sides, in effect, come to the table.
And Nikole, you were actually in Texas covering one of the most recent mass shootings. And I'm curious for you as a congressional correspondent, how difficult that may have been speaking to people who are in real time victims of this violence as they ask why Congress doesn't do more. What were people saying to you, and what do you say to them about why things haven't changed?
Well, look, it is still a community in shock, as are many communities when something like this happens. There continued to be a constant stream at that makeshift memorial that was erected right outside of the outlet malls. And, people, whether they knew those victims or not, all felt the pain of that tragedy, some expressing frustration about the lack of action, not only here in Congress, but also in their own legislature, which has not yet advanced any kind of gun safety bill. Of course, course, we saw earlier in the week one bill advanced out of committee, but unclear if it really has the momentum to go much further than that. But, you know, I would also point out that there was a family up here on Capitol Hill this week from Parkland who has been making the rounds with lawmakers, really trying to continue to keep the focus on this issue. And, you know, in talking to this family, this is the Olivers, again from Parkland, Florida, who lost their son Joaquin 5 years ago. It is still very tough for them. And so they have developed a children's book, and they were going around and reading that book to lawmakers, having lawmakers read that book, something, anything, they told me, to try to move the needle. So I think important to remember that for many of these families, you know, the struggle for them continues not just from day one as they process the loss of their loved one, but in the weeks and months and years that follow, that they kind of remain committed to trying to fight on behalf of their loved one to spur some type of action, difficult as it may be.
And unfortunately, that list of loved ones continues to grow. Nikole Killion, thank you.
You bet.